Welcome to Forensic Friday.
Where we examine the intersection of true crime, psychology, and the heart of being human in the middle of it all. Well, hi, Fran.
Hi.
Long day today. This is your first day not in the office.
For baby.
For baby, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Baby has not been born yet, but this is your first day not in the office. Although by the time this drops, probably baby will be here.
Yeah, well, she better be.
She better be. She needs to get out.
Yes.
Safely, of course.
Safely. Everyone needs to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's funny? Everyone tells you their horror stories of pregnancy and giving birth.
I hate that so much.
Everyone.
Okay, but when I had Mac, this is funny. I told you the next day we went to the pediatrician after we brought him home because
Yeah.
we didn't feed him. He did great in the hospital and we got home and nothing worked and I had no formula and it was all a mess.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in the elevator and this adorable girl gets in the elevator and she's super pregnant. And she's like, "Oh, your son is so cute." Because Mac was literally 5 days old or whatever, 4 days old. And she goes, "How was it?" And I was like, "It's really hard." I know.
Crying.
And then I was like, "Oh my gosh." And later
It's really hard.
later that day, I told Garrett, I said, "I swore I would never do that." Like, I try to be really positive. But I was so stressed that morning. I just happened to unload on her and she was like ready to pop in her face. She went like sheet white and I was like, "I'm sorry."
She's like mortified.
I know. I don't know, that first night and day are just tough and you're just disoriented a little and then it's fine.
I know. I'm just nervous. I think, yeah, I've had so many people who are like, "Oh yeah." The other day, obviously I won't say much, but this is like so many people's stories. But I was working with a couple, and as they're leaving, the husband's like, "Oh yeah, well so and so, like his wife,
Uh-huh.
yeah, she almost died during labor or during childbirth." I'm like, "Why are you telling me
This
this?
is so not helpful.
I don't need to know these things."
No.
Especially because I low key, I don't know if I've ever told you this. I low key have like this really big fear of dying.
Well, you certainly try hard.
Not on purpose.
No, I know.
So we know, our listeners know.
Oh, not on purpose. Yeah, not on purpose.
Not on purpose, but I have this big fear of just like, I don't even know. I think it's because, not to be morbid, but my friend group and family have experienced so much loss
That's true. That's true.
so randomly. And so I just have this crazy fear where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die during childbirth.
You're not. You're going to be fine. Baby's going to be adorable. It's going to be great.
I know. I know. But I will say, when people tell me their horror stories, I'm like, can you just not?
Yeah, no. People need to just stop that. Full stop. Just knock it off. So we have, I think you've told me, a pretty big case today.
Yeah, well, so it's an old-ish case. Not
Okay.
old. It's not a super new one, and it's pretty popular, but it just regained popularity because of a documentary on Hulu.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of popping back up.
Yep. And then there's a movie or a show, I also believe on Hulu. And I don't know the name, so I'm sorry, I'm not gonna reference it right this second. But it has Meredith Grey. Her real name's Ellen.
Yes, yes, yes. I don't remember what
She's
it's
the
called, but
star. She's like one of the main characters in it.
this is just wild.
I know. So they just did like a whole series on it and then this documentary, and it's a whole thing.
Okay. Well, I know nothing. I mean, I've heard the names. That's really what I know.
Okay.
I don't know really anything else.
Okay. Today I am doing the case on Natalia Grace Barnett.
Okay.
Okay. So Natalia Grace is from the Ukraine and was basically put up for adoption as a baby
Okay.
and made it to the US and had quite the, I don't want to say adventure because that's like painting a really good picture, and it was no good picture for her.
Mm.
I know. But here's the thing, like there's so much speculation, and You don't really know who's the victims and who are the perpetrators.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I'm going to give you my hot take as we go through. I already
I
know.
might get flack for saying it that way, but I'm just going to say it that way.
So when you were prepping this, it's hard for you to know kind of who played who took advantage of who hurt who.
Who was manipulative, who was
Okay.
manipulated. The story starts with Michael and Christine Barnett.
Okay.
Okay. They were married for about 15 years and had three of their own sons. Okay. So when I first started this story, I couldn't for some reason I thought they had adopted all their kids, but they didn't. They had three sons and then wanted to adopt.
Okay, so the sons are older. They had the three sons and then wanted to adopt.
Yeah. And they weren't a lot older, but yes. Very well off family. And they were kind of described by themselves, but also the community as like a really close-knit family.
Where were they living?
Oh, that's such a good question. Hold on.
I always ask the worst. I ask the one thing you don't have. You have a
I
giant
know,
outline,
it's
and I'm like,
okay.
ooh, where do they live? And you're like, Janine, doggone it. I don't
I
have it.
know. No, it's okay. Michael and Christine Barnett live. I hate yawning.
You're gonna make me yawn. Oh no. Do you know that if you yawn, you're probably not a psychopath? I think we've talked about this before.
It's if you yawn because of someone else yawning.
Oh, so I'm not a psychopath, but you might be.
I might be.
Because you made me yawn.
Yes. But yes, I have heard that. Psychopaths yawn, but they don't yawn if
But
someone else.
not because of someone else.
Yes, because there's no empathy.
Yeah, they're not connected that way.
Correct.
I don't know if
I
that's
don't
a
know where they live.
scientific fact. I've just heard that.
Yes, I'm surprised that you are now just saying that because that's been a thing.
Well, I think we've talked about it before.
Yeah. I want to say they're from Indiana, but I could be wrong.
Okay,
Okay.
good enough for me.
Yeah, Indiana comes up at some point.
Okay, so Indiana's part of the story. Check.
Yeah, it's fine. And then also one of their sons, their oldest son, was autistic or is autistic. However, is like a savant, so super smart.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's like that comes into play kind of like later as to why that's important to know.
Okay.
So Christine, when they were like before they adopted Natalia, wanted to run and was running her own daycare for special needs kids. Most of the kids were autistic. So this was her big charity. She said, it was her and her family saving grace, all this stuff. Okay. So because they felt like they were doing quote unquote so well as a family, they were like, let's add someone to the family. Let's adopt. And some of this here's the thing, you guys, if you go watch the documentary, there's no way that I can take all of the info from that and retell it. So go watch it because it is really helpful, but it gets into different parts of the adoption process and who they adopted through and like this whole thing.
Mm.
So there's a lot of this story that I'm not going to cover because we would be here for days.
Oh, for sure.
But they specifically wanted to adopt someone from Haiti
Mm.
initially. Okay. However, this was right before the earthquake hit Haiti.
There were a lot of people that wanted to adopt in Haiti after the earthquake. I remember that.
Yeah, but this was so the earthquake happened right after that their goal. And so what happened is Haiti shut down all adoptions out of the country so people could not adopt individual or kiddos from Haiti after the earthquake happened.
Well, because so many families got split up in weird ways.
Yep.
And kids just like disappeared.
Yep. And
Yeah.
parents, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So then they said that they got called from an adoption facility in Florida called Adoption by Shepherd's Care.
Hmm.
And they were like, which this is BS. I'm not going to go into all this. It's one of those like detailed things that if you want to know more, go watch it.
Yeah.
But a lot of what Michael said, which is the dad, he was like, yeah, I don't know how these guys got our contact info, but they just called and they were like, we know about you guys and we know about like your special needs care. And we have basically this little girl who has dwarfism, and you have 24 hours to decide if you want to adopt her or not.
Okay.
Which I've never looked into the adoption process. I don't know if that's how that works. You have 24 hours to decide
I
if
don't
you want
know.
to adopt someone before they go into the foster care system.
I think there's some of that happens, but I don't think that's the most common thing.
Yeah.
But I have heard of kind of like some urgency in that process, particularly around special needs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. So that's what they said. So they're like, oh, this is a gift from God. We're going to adopt her. Okay.
They're thinking like meant to be.
Literally,
Mhm.
exactly.
Okay.
So they know nothing about this little girl aside from her name, and they saw some pictures and that she's from Ukraine and that her birth certificate said she was 6 years old when they adopted her. Okay. Which was the same age as their younger son.
Okay.
Okay. I thought this was weird, but maybe it's because I'm a twin. Here's the thing. Here's what I haven't said is, and I told Preston. So Preston was the one who was like, you guys should do a case on this because it's an insane situation.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know that much about the case, which cracks me up.
Oh, that's so funny.
But I was telling him, I was like, if you watch the documentary for no other reason besides to see how insane
Mm-hmm.
this adopted dad is, do it. It's Janine, it's painful to watch.
It's painful.
It's painful to watch this man. He like digresses as you go.
Oh no.
It's so bad. It's just so like I need you to watch it
I will.
because he's such a dumpster fire. Okay.
Okay.
You and I have
Mm-hmm.
with one individual
Oh, I already know.
who's been diagnosed with histrionic personality
Yep.
disorder.
I already know.
This is the same thing.
Okay.
Same thing.
So
It's
your diagnostic impression based on our shared history and some of that is that this is what this guy has going on.
correct.
And that is always a different presentation than you expect in a man. So men are underdiagnosed for histrionic,
Correct.
but that would be your guess. Again, you don't know him, so
I don't
hypothesis.
allegedly.
Allegedly, your best clinical guess might be that he's a bit histrionic.
Yes, that he has histrionic personality disorder. I'm gonna just go and say it.
Beautiful. I will have to look at it.
You have to. It's so, and I feel for him if that is really the case because
We'll be right back.
I'm David Coe, CEO of Calm, a proud dad and the son of Korean immigrants. Each week during Mental Health Awareness Month, I sit down with leaders, artists, and changemakers to talk about the habits, boundaries, and personal practices that help them stay at the top of their game while prioritizing mental health. Let's recognize, reflect, and recharge together.
That's hard.
I've seen people be so trapped in their brain with that, and it's so challenging, but it's really hard to be on the receiving end of that.
Oh, absolutely.
So anyway, okay, so I had to get that out of the way because there's a little bit of a spin with some of this with him
Okay.
from my perspective, okay? And I'm going to be honest, I don't know enough about the wife, but I know enough. I know enough, but I don't know enough. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah.
And I'll share my
The
thoughts
twin
on
part.
So the twin part, so he's like, we were so excited because she's 6 years old and our youngest son was 6, and so we were going to call them the twins. And I'm like,
That's not how that works. You don't just take two people
and
with no blood relation who are not
biologic, yes, there's
and
no
declare them
biological.
twins.
and then say that they're twins.
I'm not an expert, but that's going to create some problems.
And I'm a twin.
I know.
I'm like, you don't know. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I was like,
It's already bad.
that makes no sense in my brain. And I don't know why that bugged the crap out of me, but it did. So here we are.
Because I think you know how special it is to actually have a twin.
Yeah.
It's hard and it's special and it's really unique. And so for someone to just declare that that's a thing and
Mhm.
expect it to work like that
Yeah.
for someone who potentially has trauma and is being adopted,
Yes.
wild. Like the
Wild.
attachment pieces are
That's exactly.
inappropriate. And most families who adopt, if they go through any kind of training or class or anything, one of the first things you learn is when kiddos are getting placed for foster care or adoption,
Mhm.
the attachment issues are intense and you have to kind of roll with it and you
Yes.
don't want to put a bunch of expectation on it.
Yes.
And that's like adoption 101.
Literally.
So declaring that they're going to be like twins is a lot to put on a couple kids.
Nuts.
Yeah, I don't love that.
Yes. So they signed the paperwork. They saw the other family leave. They dropped Natalia off and the other family left. Okay.
Okay.
So part of this is, Michael and Christine say that they never talked to these parents, blah, 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 blah.
And it was the foster parents dropping her off at.
Another adopted parent.
Okay. So it was another adoptive parent dropping her off at this
Yes.
new house.
And there was no quote unquote information as to why they couldn't keep her at this point.
Okay.
So Natalia runs in the room, according to Michael, and shouts, "Mommy, Daddy," which when I first thought about that, I was like, I don't know if that happened. Because most kids who get adopted, I don't think do that.
No, I mean, they might as like a severe attachment reaction because kids usually either overbond super quickly and then have a reaction or they're standoffish. But I think it's more likely for them to be standoffish.
Well, and
in
this situation, the reason why it was hard to believe was because her other family just dropped her off.
Yeah, unless she was trying to endear herself to them immediately because she was getting abandoned.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I think that's unusual and may very well have not happened.
Yeah.
Especially if we've already determined that Michael might be a little bit histrionic. So
yes.
The more likely thing is that he's being very extra in his storytelling.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I'll just skip to it. She did do that. So she confirms at a later age, much older age, that she did do that.
She did run in and Mommy, Daddy right away.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, and it gets weirder. This is such a weird situation. She runs in the room. She yells, "Mommy, Daddy." And like they show pictures of her being adopted and all that. And she looks young. Like she looks like she's 6 years old.
Okay.
The hard thing is with her disability, she looks young anyway. And it's not like it's a specific type. I can't remember what they called it. She looks like a child all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm. So even her features look young. It's not that she's just small stature, but small stature and her features look
young. Her teeth, like I was paying attention to her teeth.
Okay.
All that kind of stuff. Because teeth tell a lot, right?
Oh, they do. Totally. Absolutely.
So everything looked young. Okay. So they go to Disney World. They have this blast, which also I'm like, so you pick her up in Florida, then you go straight to Disney World with your sons and your new daughter.
Oh my gosh.
It's a lot.
I have some dear friends who have adopted from other countries, even domestically. That is a nightmare scenario. It's so overstimulating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they go to Disney World. They have a blast. They go to the hotel room. Christine goes to give her a bath and screams. So Michael runs in the room. And the whole thing is that this little girl has pubic hair. Like full.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So she screams because she's like, oh my gosh, this girl is supposedly 6, but has pubic hair.
I might have screamed too. I could understand that being very confusing.
I know. It's
Oh,
so weird.
okay. You have my attention.
I know this.
Oh my gosh.
So they brought her home, and then they also had this big party for her, which is also overwhelming.
Uh-huh.
And Michael's all excited. He's beaming. So they kind of acknowledge this, but then move on because they're like, maybe with her disability and her body and like
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, maybe there's something else going on.
Yeah, but this is like the first sign of something different and weird
Okay.
to them. Okay. So one day, Michael gets home and Christine is holding a pair of Natalia's underwear. Okay. And here's the thing. All of this is between Michael and Christine.
Hmm.
Michael is telling this story. Okay.
Hmm.
She's holding a pair of her underwear and discloses that Natalia has her period.
Michael's holding them? Oh no, Christine. Okay, Christine's holding the underwear. Okay.
And tells Michael that Natalia has a period. And that Natalia had been hiding it from them this whole time.
Hmm.
She's still like 6. This is still when she's new to the family.
Hmm.
What are you thinking?
Well, I'm thinking it's kind of a delicate situation. I would definitely have questions.
Uh-huh.
But also, they're not medical doctors, so I could imagine that they're a little bit confused, but there's not a 6-year-old that I can think of on the planet who's having a period.
So something's weird.
Something's off. Yeah.
Something's up, something's off. Okay. This is all just like food for the bank here. Okay.
Okay.
So she then has to go get this foot surgery because her type of dwarfism is like her joints are all messed up and all this stuff.
Okay.
She has to go get this foot surgery and she goes to this, a certain doctor and he's, an expert in these things. And she meets another girl who has the same type of dwarfism as her. Okay. What just came up?
Well, were they kind of in supposed to be in the same age range? Okay.
Yes. So they're supposed to be relatively the same age.
Okay.
And Natalia is much bigger than this girl.
Oh, goodness.
Much bigger. Okay.
Hmm.
I mean, you could tell. So I thought Natalia's face looked super young.
But then...
different. This other little girl looked so much younger. Okay. They actually interview that little girl later when she's a teenager and they show pictures and she's like, oh, she's for sure like 18.
I love how the child in that situation knew what was going on.
Yeah, she's like, that's not a 6-year-old.
Did the doctor say anything? Because most doctors would be like, she ain't 6.
Well, so that's where everything gets messed up. But we'll get there.
Okay. I'm waiting.
So then Michael says, okay, this is such a fricked up case. So he goes, I think Natalia knew that she was kind of busted, that she's older. And so she started to like change her face a little, like puff up her cheeks and try to like look younger.
Okay.
Okay. Also, again, Michael's like a little bit of a loose cannon.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Okay. So, dude, you can puff up your cheeks for like 5 seconds and then you exhale. Like, I don't know. I don't know what kind of plan this was, but whatever.
Yeah, whatever. It's a whole thing. Okay.
I just puffed up my cheeks at Nat. She's like, don't distract me. Do I look younger?
Do I look younger? No, you just look like a psycho.
100%.
A weirdo. But she was, yeah. So anyway, so Michael's like, she was like trying to look younger, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, whatever. They interviewed the mother and the little girl, and they said that Natalia looked like a teenager.
Okay, so this is obvious to everyone except her adoptive parents and the doctor, apparently.
Apparently, yeah.
Okay, I'm tracking.
When they interviewed that little girl when she was a teenager, she looked more like Natalia looked when they interviewed her. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because she was a teenager at that point.
Yes.
Then they bring an individual from Ukraine. I can't remember what they were doing. I can't remember if it was like therapy or something, but they were doing something to like help integrate Natalia.
Okay.
So they bring this girl in who's from Ukraine and she starts talking in Ukraine and Natalia looks like dumbfounded. Like she's like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what she's saying. And to some degree, I'm like, well, if she's so young, she actually might not.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't like they made it feel and seem like Natalia was looking at it like, this makes no sense. She had been gone from Ukraine much longer than she said she had.
It wasn't lining up.
Yeah. They were like basically saying she wasn't just there a couple of years ago.
Mm.
Right? This is when they start to feel like she is manipulating them and lying about who she is,
Mm-hmm.
her age and everything.
Mm-hmm.
They show footage, and it's painful to watch, of Christine filming her,
Oh no.
basically saying things like, you weren't telling us the full truth. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. Well, she starts to rebel and starts like peeing on stuff.
Mm.
Oh, it's real bad. She'd like pee on the boys, like pee on blankets.
Mm.
She would defecate herself and then like smear it.
Oh.
I know.
On the other kids?
Try to smear it on the other.
Oh.
Oh yeah, rough. Here's the thing. Someone told me, they were like, kids will try to do that when they're little. And I'm like, my child, I can't.
My son, listen, he's going to hear this someday and kill me. But when he potty trained himself. He's hilarious. He's so smart, just ahead of the game, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So one time we had a child doorknob on his door because, you know, we were teaching him to stay in the room and he was getting big enough that he could have like walked out the front door. So we're trying to figure all this out, right?
Mm-hmm.
He had to poop in the middle of the night. He takes a basket
No.
out of his closet, dumps the stuff out, poops in the basket, goes back to bed. We get up in the morning, we're like, what happened here? He's like, I had to go to the bathroom. He just,
And I couldn't get out of my door.
Pooped in the basket.
He is gonna kill you when he hears this.
I know. We'll save it for, you know, his high school graduation or whatever.
I was gonna say he'll be like 18. It's fine.
Like, Mom. Oh my God.
No, he's gonna hate you, but it's fine. Good
No,
job.
but I have heard this, and especially with psychological conditions, I don't know where this is going with Natalia, but when you get into reactive attachment and some of this stuff, the bathroom behaviors are pretty extreme. That is something that can happen. Yeah.
So she was just like intentionally kind of mean is what the picture was painting.
Okay.
Then they realized that Natalia was taking knives from the kitchen. Again, this is all from Michael.
Okay.
Okay. Realized she was taking knives from the kitchen and hiding them in her room. When they addressed her, she said that she wanted to kill them in their sleep.
Oh, Lord.
Does this remind you of anything?
Like a case?
No, just anything.
I mean, I will say like truly homicidal people rarely tell people, I am hanging on to knives so I can kill you in your sleep. There's usually like a manipulative point to all of it.
Yes. I think there's a movie on this.
Oh.
From 2009. But she later in an interview says they literally got all this from a movie. Girl from Ukraine.
Are you serious?
Yeah. But here's the thing though, it gets weirder. Just hang in there.
Oh
but
my God.
So she like basically denies it. She's like, no, none of this happened. This was all in a movie. So they literally like made this up.
Natalia's saying that Christine and Michael made it up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that there is a movie that they are literally basically copying.
Pretending that that's what's happening to them.
Correct.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I couldn't find the movie. Maybe it's Orphan. I don't know. Adopted? No, that's not it.
No, I think Orphan has like paranormal stuff.
Yes, but I think it's somewhat based on that a little bit.
Oh geez.
Anyway, I could be wrong, but it's she references a movie at one point in an interview, and I believe that the interview was with Dr. Phil.
Told me my parents are big Dr. Phil fans, and they love to call me and ask me all the questions.
That does not surprise me at all.
No, totally. It's in line with all the other things, Dateline, all of it. Yes. But they would call me, and I'm pretty sure they called me after they saw the Dr. Phil on this whole.
What'd they say? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but it's coming back. The Dr. Phil piece just clicked.
Yeah, no, yeah, she did an interview. It's so weird, this whole thing.
This is
Okay,
so weird.
I know. So it was a whole thing. So she was like, well, I want to kill you in your sleep and blah, blah, blah. That's why I'm hiding knives. Okay.
Cool.
So they start looking for help for her. And a few of the therapists said that she was really dangerous. They get her diagnosis and like they're thinking, maybe she's like schizophrenia, maybe she's,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Yeah.
And they say that the doctors, like a psychologist or I think psychologist, diagnosed her as a sociopath.
Cool. It's not a diagnosis, but whatever. Yeah.
Literally.
It's not. But
Literally. I was like, okay, you're an idiot.
no. Mm-mm.
But you have to watch it because Michael's so terrible.
Oh, he's milking this, I'm assuming. He's here for the dramatic retelling of
But
this.
then it shifts. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
But yes. He's like all this stuff and
He has
blah,
a
blah.
story to tell.
Oh my gosh. It's the whole thing.
Oh my gosh. I'm trying to imagine like if he was telling me the story, what I would do. And I'd be like,
Oh, you watch the documentary and you're gonna want to just bury your head in the couch.
is it like physically uncomfortable?
Yes, it's so cringy. It's so bad. I literally
Wait,
like
I'm not
texted-
gonna watch it tonight because I need to sleep, but maybe tomorrow.
You should maybe watch some of it tonight.
Okay.
Then Michael says, at one point, she's standing at the foot of my bed with a knife. At the end of our bed with a knife.
Okay.
Another time, she put pledge in Christine's coffee to try to poison her.
Okay.
Okay, so this girl's like on a rampage to try to kill them.
Okay.
Their story. At another point, they went to this dairy farm. This is important. At another point, they went to this dairy farm and they had to sign this waiver, according, again, to Michael,
Mm-hmm.
of liability that if they touch, basically like don't touch the electric fence. And so they had to sign a liability thing.
I'm not
Just
taking
in
my
case.
child who is threatening to kill me to anything that I have to sign a waiver for. Why don't you go? Let's just go bungee jumping then and see if she unhooks something. Like, what are you doing?
So they do this, but it's a dairy farm. And it's like for one of the son's birthdays because that's what he wanted to do.
Okay.
So allegedly, they get to the fence and
Okay.
all of a sudden, Natalia can't walk.
Mm.
Okay, so Christine gets all pissed off and she's like, you guys go ahead, tells the boys and Michael to go ahead. And she's going to stay with Natalia and like figure out what to do. Then Michael says, well, I hear this screaming and I look back and Natalia is trying to drag Christine to the electric fence. Okay, it turns into this whole thing. And then so they come back and she's like, no, you guys keep going. Christine says this. I'm like, all of this is bullshit. Anyway.
You know, it's weird. This is all very weird.
All super
I mean,
bullshit.
this is attempted murder at a dairy farm by electric fence. I've never like this in my life.
Also, you're not going to die if you touch an electric fence.
No. Mm-mm.
You might die if you pee on it. I don't know if that's true. So they allegedly keep going on their hike and then they hear sirens. And so they come back and it's noted that Christine's hysterical and Natalia's hysterical and Natalia's like screaming, I want to kill you, bitch. Like all this stuff.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Like yelling this in front of the police.
Okay.
Like paramedics.
And there's records of this. Okay.
Well, so throughout Natalia living with them, they took measures of putting a lock on the outside of her door. They would have to escort her at night to the bathroom because they were just so quote unquote scared of her.
Okay.
They then take her to the hospital and she's admitted to this psychiatric wing.
Okay.
According to the intake coordinator. So here's where things start to get a little dicey. So at first,
now we finally have an external perspective on this.
Yes.
Okay.
So here's the thing that I've been thinking this whole time. Okay, sorry, I know this part has been long, but I've got to paint this picture.
No, totally, yeah.
Because it's like kind of a brain F, okay?
Yeah.
So this whole time I'm like, I'm watching this and I've also done research. This chick Natalia could be pretty nuts, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I'm also watching and I'm like, but also Michael and Christine seem insane.
Yeah, there's a lot happening here.
A lot happening. So now we get an external perspective, okay?
Okay.
They go to this hospital and they admit her to the psychiatric wing. According to the intake coordinator, so they are like being interviewed.
Okay.
This isn't like what Michael said they said.
Okay. This is now a hospital intake person.
Correct.
Okay.
Said that they transferred her to the adult wing because they saw her pubic hair. So now we come back to the freaking pubic hair.
So they're like, okay, at least a teenager, probably an adult.
Probably an adult.
Okay.
One of the therapists was recorded saying she's not a kid, that's an adult. She was aggressive and very manipulative. She could be super sneaky at times. Another worker said she would pretend she couldn't speak English and then would talk to them in English when no one else was around. And she would fight with the staff like pretty often.
Hmm.
Pretty much all of them said she was all adult. I know. She was developed as an adult, would talk about sex and would wear revealing clothing and was like trying to seduce some of the other patients.
Oh, goodness.
I know. There's
Okay.
a whole thing. So they call Michael and Christine to come pick her up and they're like, she's provoking the men. Like, this is not good. We can't have her here. And then they're like, she needs inpatient treatment. And they're like, yeah, you're inpatient. And they're like, we can't keep her.
Mm.
So what are you thinking now? So at first we have like all Michael's BS, all this one perspective of like she's trying to kill this family and she's not who she says she is. But now we shift.
One, I think it's helpful to have an outside perspective.
Mhm.
One of the questions I have about that, though, is in a treatment facility, promiscuous sexual behavior is not uncommon in a treatment facility. So even when I ran an adolescent IOP, some of the facilitators would like make a big deal about it. I didn't, because the minute you tell a teenager what not to do, they do it.
Yeah.
But we did have to kind of monitor this. But that's not uncommon in a treatment facility. People
Right.
hook up and whatever. I'm not saying it's okay. And maybe she was so out of line that she was unmanageable. But it's weird to me that they couldn't just separate it a little bit. Typically, they have like a woman's wing and a men's wing. I don't understand how this was happening. Also, they can tell her what to wear in a psychiatric
That's what I was thinking.
hospital. I'm also thinking to myself, how did they get her admitted unless they tried to say that she was a minor, but she went to the adult wing? Unless she's suicidal, homicidal, gravely disabled, whatever.
Well, there was the homicidal piece of it.
So she was clearly saying to them that she was going to kill her adoptive parents. She would have to be, or they wouldn't be able to keep her.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. It wasn't clear if she said that or not.
Mm-mm. And if they believed she was homicidal, they wouldn't let her leave just because she was being flirtatious with the men. They would just lock that down.
Right.
Oh, this is interesting.
I know. So we get a little bit of a different side of the story now. Okay. It starts to paint the picture of her being abused. Okay. And it's pretty painful to watch. So there's points where Christine would make her stand in the corner until she would admit that she's not who she says she was.
Oh, okay.
And she, at one point, tried to make her sleep on the back deck. Police got called.
Oof.
But it said what's really interesting is the detective pulls some documentation, and Natalia was naturalized here in the U.S. in 2008. Okay, when she first got here from Ukraine. What are you thinking?
What was the date originally on her birth certificate?
Originally, it was 2003.
Okay. So she would have been naturalized at age 5 in 2008. When did she get adopted?
When she was 6.
When she was 6, but what year?
Oh, I don't know.
Because that's the timeline then. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of interesting because if she was naturalized at age 5, that's what the documentation says,
Yeah.
right? Then you could map that to the year that she was adopted and it would show how old she is.
Yes. So here's the thing though.
Hmm.
So naturalized in 2008 when she first got here from Ukraine. This shows all her vitals, etc. Natalia then tells the detective about her new birth date.
Mm,
She was told that she was told at the orphanage in Ukraine.
mm.
So her new birthday was in 2003. That's where I got 2003.
Okay.
Okay. It was also noted that 4 years prior to when she was naturalized, she had not grown at all.
Hmm.
Her size didn't change, which is interesting because if she
Mhm.
was 6, she would have grown.
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me? From age 2 to 6,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
They grow a ton. I mean, it's wild.
Yep.
Oh, that's interesting.
So the detective says he does not believe that the birth certificate is right.
Mm,
And he tells them, the Barnetts, to call an attorney to get her correct age,
mm.
to correct her age, essentially.
Okay.
And the detective said that oftentimes their birth certificates from orphanages from other countries tend to not have the right information. So he's alluding to Natalia being older than her birth certificate says.
Okay.
Okay, so all that mess is to say, this is what the detective is saying to the Barnetts. Okay, and that did happen. He did tell them that.
Okay.
So now everyone's like, who the heck is this girl? Where did she come from?
What is she doing
What is she doing? So they find her mom, her bio mom.
in Ukraine?
Yes.
Okay.
So her name is Anna Gava. But before they found Anna, they found Natalia's aunt, Tatiana.
Mm,
Okay. So at first they find Tatiana, and Tatiana talks about how Natalia continued to get taken and thrown around. Like they kind of knew some of like this story that was happening from the Ukraine. In Ukraine, they knew what was pretty kind of what was going on in the US.
okay.
They call Anna on the phone, and Anna's like pissed. She's like, I've been interviewed before, like people have called me before. I've been dealing with this saga for 17 years.
Mm.
Okay, what does that tell you?
That other parents, other people have
Yes.
had issues with Natalia and have tried to track this down.
Yes, but so this was in 2020. Okay, and she says, I've been dealing with this saga for 17 years.
Well, she's 17 years old.
Yeah, so she's a minor.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
But she's
important.
not an adult. She's almost an adult.
Yes, in 2020.
Okay.
Okay, so she may actually have been born in 2003, but they're trying to paint her older. So the year that they changed her birthday to is
Mm.
1989.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Uh-huh.
So when the detective said they need to correct it, how did they quantify her age? What evidence did they use? Because you would think maybe a doctor or somebody would be involved.
Yeah, so they didn't really go into that, at least up to the point that I've watched too.
Mm-hmm.
But they talk about, and we'll get into the trial and everything here in a minute,
Okay.
but they talk about basically like signs of her body. So, like the fact that she hasn't, quote unquote, hasn't grown. She has this,
Yeah.
she has hair in places that kids don't have hair and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Okay. In 2008 was when she was adopted by her original family, the
Mm,
first family. Okay. So if she's born in 2003, she's 5
mm.
when she's adopted into her first family. They found her behavior to be difficult, so that's why they rehomed her basically and did a closed adoption.
Okay.
Other families were interviewed from the organization called Little People of America. Like, that's cool. I didn't know that there was an organization like that.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm not going to go into too much of this detail, but basically, it was like after the first family adopted her and they couldn't really quote unquote handle her, they tried to get her adopted through families from Little People of America. Okay.
Okay.
They felt like they might understand her more, all that kind of stuff. And so
Yeah.
there were like a couple of people in the running. Like they were like, let's see, let's see. What's interesting is this one family really, really thought about it. They were well off enough. Like one family they wanted to, but they couldn't like
Afford.
financially do it.
Mm-hmm.
She needed some surgeries and it was a whole thing. So this other family was thinking about it, but they said, very Christian family, whatever. The husband was like, I just sat, he goes, I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was the mother, like the first adopted mother. I don't know if it was in Natalia. He's like, but there was just something weird and like evil.
Okay.
Like an evil spirit was around. And I'm good at discerning things. And I just told, basically, I had to tell my wife no, that we weren't going to go through with this. So it's just interesting, right? Like this is building the case of what's going on with this girl,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They decide not to adopt Natalia. They call the original adoptive mom, her name is Diane. It doesn't really matter because we're going to move on from her here in a sec anyway. But she like flips out.
Well, because she's trying to offload Natalia.
Yes. Yes.
And she thought she had people who were willing to have Natalia in their home, and then they weren't.
Yes. Okay.
Oof.
So we're going to push pause on Natalia for a sec.
Okay.
Now we get into some spiciness between Michael and Christine.
Oh, I'm here for it.
Okay. There was for sure domestic violence in their relationship.
Yeah.
For sure. So,
Can I make a hypothesis?
yeah, please.
I think Christine's primary aggressor, but carry on.
Yes. I'm going to just tell you that right now.
Yeah, well, and I'll say later why I think that, but go for it.
Okay. Yes.
That's just my hypothesis. I
think your hypothesis is correct.
Okay.
Okay. So Christine actually alludes to Michael being the abusive one, saying things like, you've had domestic violence in your past, blah, 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 blah. The neighbors start to hear them fighting, and Christine is ruthless.
So the neighbors are saying Christine was pretty fierce.
Yes.
Okay.
You have to watch this. It's so
I know I'm going to.
So painful.
I'm going to watch it going to bed. And tomorrow I'm going to be in the hotel getting ready for the board meeting. And this is what I'm going to watch.
Be the best.
I'm going to text you the whole time. I'm going to live text you. Buckle up.
Please do.
Put me on mute because I'm going to be sending one-liners, which you hate.
You guys, Janine will send me like 12 texts. And I'm like, and it's just one line. And I send the paragraphs.
You do.
I do I'm very organized.
You are an organized texter. I am not.
You are not. Oh my God. I usually read the first and the last. And I'm like, if something in the middle is still important, she'll come back to it.
And I will.
So the creamery incident comes back up.
Oh, we're back at the dairy farm.
We're back at the dairy farm and the electric fence. So they interview some people who were there that day.
Okay.
So this guy named Christopher, whatever, got a call that there was some crisis at the electric fence. They called law enforcement to help assist. They thought they were going to get down there and a little person was going to be the one who was distressed. They get down there and I'm using their terms, okay? Quote, the little person was the one who was calm and the caretaker was the one who was more emotional.
Okay.
There was no mention of the caretaker being at any risk at any point. So when Christopher listens to Michael's recollection, so here's the thing, like this documentary is freaking long. When Christopher listens to Michael's recollection
retelling of what happened,
Christopher's like, no.
No, that's not what happened.
Because what Michael said was, again, like, bitch, I'm going to kill you. This is what Natalia was saying to Christine. You're going to die, blah, blah. Christopher looked like he's like hearing Michael say all this in the video and he looks shocked. He's like, that didn't happen.
No.
That was not happening.
Okay.
He said he did not remember any of that being said. and there was no type of life-threatening going on.
Okay.
He felt like the situation was overblown and that it really wasn't that big of a deal, and that Christine was making the situation worse. So the caretaker was making the situation worse.
Mm.
Okay. Another worker got called and asked if they could turn the fence off. And the guy was like, and asked if they could turn it off and if it was dangerous. And the guy was like, no to both because that part of the fence was off.
Yeah.
So, like, no, there was no danger for them. Okay. So then they circle back to Michael incident.
I love a good revisit. Because we
I'm like, bro.
sometimes shift and change. And my favorite part is like, remember when? I live for that. So fun.
I know it's the best.
Mm-hmm.
So they switch back to Michael, and now Michael's just talking about Christine. He didn't hear any of that besides of what Christine said. So now he's like, yeah, no, I just went off what Christine told me.
I guess maybe that didn't happen.
I guess that didn't happen.
Oh, no.
Yes. Whereas before he said he heard all these death threats and heard Natalia B say all this crazy stuff.
Was he saying that while looking over his shoulder? Because Christine's about to come through the wall and finish the job.
Bro.
Like, she sounds pretty intense. I mean, he does too, but I have a feeling about her.
Oh, no, it gets worse.
Okay.
So Natalia was then interviewed and was asked about what happened at the creamery. And she said, we went on a walk. I did not have good shoes on. And so her feet were bleeding and hurting. And she also threw up, she said. Okay. And mind you, like, when you see her walk, it's painful to watch.
Yeah. She probably has some pain when she walks.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, I mean, now as an adult, I think she's an adult now. She has a walker.
Yeah.
Or a wheelchair.
And the exertion too, then, of that. You're in pain, you're trying to walk,
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So she sat down and Christine told the boys to keep going. She said Christine was helping her and then she fell. Christine fell and was close to the fence and then said that she tried to push her. Yeah. So, okay. At this point in their lives, they had re-aged her to 22.
Okay.
This would go to her being born more in like I think 89 is what they said.
Okay.
Okay. She had to go in for some surgeries. She got out and they literally took her to an apartment because at this point she's quote unquote 22.
So now they're like, hey, guess what? You're an adult. Here's an apartment.
Correct.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they offload her. They're like, they get her this apartment. Basically, they're like, fend for yourself. Whatever. They sign the lease, get her all set up. And like occasionally Michael and Christine would go, but it was mostly Michael would go to like make sure she's basically alive, which is just really sad. So this is where Indiana comes in. So at this place was in Westfield, Indiana. Okay. Which is a kind of a big deal because we'll talk about another place in Indiana here in a sec. Okay. So she's in like a decent neighborhood. There's families, all that kind of stuff. Neighbors then get interviewed. Okay. And I'm not going to go into everything because there's a lot here.
Yeah.
But basically, all the neighbors are super uncomfortable with her. They tell stories like she would just walk into their apartment and like just show up, be in their kitchen, be sitting in their living room. And then there was rumors and allegations of her sexually assaulting little boys or trying to sexually assault little boys, allegedly.
Okay.
Okay. So the neighbors were wildly uncomfortable. There was a couple that was interviewed, like a younger couple, and they said they're like, and they were really sweet. They were like, we really cared for her, but like she was a lot. She would watch out her window to see when people would get home and then like rush over and like bombard them. And they said at one point she did walk into their home, go straight for their son's bedroom, never really engaged with their daughter. But their little chihuahua got in the way and scared her. Oh. And then they told her, like, you can't do that. You can't come back and whatever. So everyone's like super uncomfortable with this girl.
Mm.
They're telling the apartment management, and they're like, we can't really evict her. Like, we have to go through this process, blah, blah, blah. Well, then her lease is about to end, and they don't let her resign. So now we have other outsiders who are confirming, like, this Natalia girl's off. There's something wrong.
Something's off. She's kind of unkempt. She's not doing well.
And I've skipped this part. She's also talking. So she's allegedly, right, kind of perpetrating on young boys, but there's also rumors that she's also like trying to flirt with men
Mm.
and telling people she's 22.
So we're still kind of getting a picture of her maybe being hypersexualized and some of
Yeah.
that. Okay.
And we're really trying to figure out how old she is too.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, at one point the neighbors called human services, the whole thing. Oh, this part's really interesting.
Hmm.
One day, Natalia calls 911 on herself and literally tells them that she's stalking her neighbors and says she wants to hurt them and she's scared of what might happen if she does not get help.
Mm.
So she calls, and there's like a record of that.
Right.
Like
Her voice. I mean, she called and said that.
Yes. Yes.
Interesting.
So that's the other interesting part, right? So, and another neighbor, this old lady, she was hilarious. She said, she was like, well, why don't you live with your parents? And Natalia told her, well, because I tried to kill them, basically. They're scared of me. So
Yeah.
she's telling people all this stuff, okay? But also it's like, there's this other side of the story that this stuff isn't happening, okay?
Right.
So, like I said, she's not allowed to re-sign that lease. The Barnetts then bring her to a town called Lafayette, Indiana, which is like really run down.
Okay.
Basically they put her in a second floor apartment, which is terrible for her because of her disabilities. And they basically say no one's going to care about her here like they did at the other place, and this is better.
They just dumped her.
Yes, again. But now in a worse place where people aren't keeping an eye.
Oh, gosh.
So again, it goes back and forth. It's like, who's the monster here, right? She's literally living, they interview this other dude. She's living next to a guy who's like a sex offender of children. It's just this whole thing. Okay. So then she goes missing, and the Barnetts are all freaked out because they're like, oh shit. CPS, or not CPS, but Human Services are going to come knocking on our door.
Because we dumped her off and now we can't find her.
Yes, because she was taking some classes and then she stopped showing up. Well, she ended up going with this other family, and they took her in, and that's
she found this family. It wasn't like a Human Services thing. She
Correct.
talked her way in, connected with some kind of family. Okay.
Correct. And that's a whole thing too. Again, I'm not going to go deep dive into that, but there's allegedly some things of like they took advantage of her. They used all her food stamps. They used, like switched her, Social Security to them. So they were getting paid instead of Michael getting paid. It was a whole thing. So then in 2014, Michael and Christine separate and start their divorce process. It becomes a massive battle between Michael and Christine now. Okay, so now we're moving away from Natalia a little bit and mind you, she's still living kind of with this family. Okay, like, so she's been basically adopted by this family, but she's also quote unquote 22 years old. So Michael and Christine start to have all these problems, and Michael shifts and starts throwing Christine under the bus.
That's on brand.
Yeah, so for this whole time, he's really been focused on Natalia being the problem, and now Christine's the problem. But Michael does tell the detective so they split up. Michael's trying to kind of backpedal. Detectives are still involved. Like, detectives have been in and out of this case for years, okay? Okay, Michael tells the detective that he believed that Natalia was 22 years old in the year of 2014. Okay, so he's like, she's 22 right now in 2014.
Oh, geez.
Yes, I know. Which means that she would have been 16 years old when she lived in her first apartment, which is not good.
No.
It means she's an adolescent.
Yeah.
So he literally incriminated himself. And detectives are funny because They basically make you think they're your best friend.
Oh yeah, and then they turn on.
To get information, which is
Absolutely.
brilliant.
Yeah.
I would love to be a detective just so I could be like, bro,
Oh yeah, totally.
you really thought I was going to be your best friend?
I know.
Anyway, so he incriminated himself and then got charged with childhood neglect and abuse.
So he's like, I thought she was 16. Oh, yep, but I did leave her. And I well,
Well, he said, well, I think she's 22 now. And again, that was in 2014. So that made her 16 when he left her. And then detective is like, this idiot
yeah.
just literally told me that she was basically 16 when they left her in that apartment.
Michael's not as smart as he is dramatic. That's for sure.
Oh, 1000%.
Yeah.
He's painful to watch. So he turned himself in, and then Christine had to turn herself in because they both got charged. And Michael continued to blame Christine. He said Christine was the master manipulator. He believes that she manipulated everybody. She made up all this stuff about Natalia. Your face is saying a lot of stuff. What is your face?
Uh-huh.
Manipulated their sons. So did all this crazy stuff. And he's like, he literally yells, we were all abused. We were all abused in that household. Yells it. Oh, girl, you got to watch it.
Oh my gosh.
Long story longer, kind of. Long story short. He just shifts everything. He literally, they were like, okay, well, what'd she do to be abusive? Blah, blah, blah. And there was like footage of her doing stuff, like I said, like making her stand in a corner. And like, he was like, she would make her stand there all day. She would pee on herself. She would, all the things. And like, she never let her move. At one point, he said, this was hilarious. At one point, he goes, you're going to have to point the camera to the floor. And they're like, okay. And
He acted it out.
He acted it out.
Oh no.
I was like,
absolutely not.
And here's the thing. I was like, the way he acted it out, I was like, dude, first of all, she'd be dead. Natalia would be dead if that happened.
Because we have, on occasion, over the years, had somebody stand up and demonstrate something, and
it's very uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable, rarely accurate, always highly dramatic.
Oh, always.
And it puts off the people who watch it pretty much every time.
Oh, Janine. I was like, oh my God, this is so cringy. So he acts it out, and I literally was like, she would be dead. Her face would be caved in. She would have had to have literal surgery on her face.
So he does this big dramatic demonstration.
Whole thing. Then he continues to yell how abusive she was and how neglectful she was to him. Okay, so now it's shifting again back to like how he was abused. And how, he goes, she was sexually abusive, but not in the way that you would know. She would withhold sex. Literally says, so I got a wee bit, that's how he says it. I got a wee bit addicted to pornography.
That's such a great way to say that.
I was like,
well done,
I could picture some of our guys saying it that way.
Just a wee bit addicted to pornography.
I got a wee bit addicted to pornography. He literally says it like, what's the big deal?
Yeah, and it makes sense because I'm not getting sex.
And he goes, pornography is not going to tell me that I'm ugly and that it's not going to reject me. I'm like, okay, bro.
Okay.
And she would use it against him, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so now it's like, it's confirming how chaotic their relationship actually was and how bad it was.
Yeah.
We're going to jump to the court case because there's just a bunch of other stuff that I could keep on going on about Natalia and who's the criminal, who's not the criminal. It literally doesn't stop.
Yeah.
So we get to the court case and I'm like, thank the Lord. What's going to happen?
We're in court.
We're in court. So the shitty thing is they have to actually leave her age out of this.
Really?
Yes.
Why is that?
I don't know if it really went into a lot of it, but they had to leave her age out. Oh, and I did skip one part. They also interviewed Anna Gava again.
Yeah.
While, shoot, what year was it? Oh, yeah. Okay. So they interviewed, I forgot to tell you this. They interviewed Anna Gava again. And it was when the war in Ukraine was like blowing up.
Not the current one, but the former.
The former.
Okay.
So you can like hear kind of chaos in the background as they're interviewing her, but she confirms that Natalia was younger than what everyone was saying. So she was not 22, she was not born in 89, she was born in 2003
Mm.
because Anna Gava was born in like 79. So it would have made her 10 years old having Natalia.
So they could backtrack from Biomom, Anna, to
Correct.
figure out that she, yeah.
So essentially, so what that proved based on what Anna Gava was saying was that she was potentially around 13 when they left her alone in that apartment.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I've never heard of a case really, and I've heard of adoption cases where birth certificates are questionable and you don't know all the details. I've never heard of a case where it's this up in the air how old someone is. Anywhere
Right.
from 13 to 22.
Right. It was, and even as someone who was like watching this thing, but also I'd done some research, it's like I feel like I'm all over the place with her age because that's how it felt. Like I was like, I can't pin down
Mm-hmm.
how old she is, right?
Well, and
Neither
it's the
could they.
confirmation bias thing too. It's like they created a narrative, a
Mhm.
lot of different players in the story
Mhm.
created a narrative and then tried to change all the details to fit the narrative. And it just happened over and over and over again.
Correct.
Okay.
And here's the thing. I think everyone's kind of insane in this situation. I'm going to be honest. Like, I think everyone had a level of manipulation. I think whatever, right? But I'm sitting here and I'm like, and there was blood like tested. They took her, not blood, but they took Anna Gava's DNA and tested it, and she is biologically Natalia's mom.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sitting here and I'm like, regardless of how manipulative Natalia is, and here's the thing. We've worked with teenagers who can be highly manipulative.
Well, and especially when you get into reactive attachment disorder and
Oh,
that kind of stuff, this isn't that. I mean, it's an extreme case, but also a lot of these behaviors are not that uncommon with reactive attachment disorder.
correct.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here and I'm like, I have the belief that she was younger, right?
Hmm.
Sitting here listening to the mom.
It sounds like that.
So, so again, they could not bring her age into consideration, which put the defense ahead and pretty much screwed the prosecution,
Mm,
right?
because it was hard to convict Michael and Christine that they knowingly left a minor if they couldn't confirm the age.
Correct.
Okay.
And according to the birth certificate, she
Mm,
was older. Well, let me re-say that. According to what they had re-aged her as,
yeah.
based on her body and all these things that they said they had evidence of, it said that she was older. So they weren't really allowed to know, like the jury wasn't really quote unquote allowed to know that there was this whole other birth certificate and all this other evidence saying that she wasn't that age. So even if someone slipped up, they still couldn't use that in the jury.
Got it.
What are you thinking?
Whew.
I know it's a lot. We're getting
Well,
there.
it's a juggernaut of nonsense. Like it's just
It's a
really
shit show.
hard. It's like a dog chasing its tail a little bit. Like it's
Yes.
just, there's no beginning and there's no end. Like it just keeps spinning. And I don't know how I feel yet. I think I need more information.
It's a total dumpster fire. So the
Yeah.
court date happened in 2022.
Okay.
Okay. Michael was facing 3 felonies,
Mm-hmm.
and if found guilty, would have had to do significant prison time. Okay. Again,
Mm-hmm.
Christine was also, but there wasn't a ton about Christine because she wasn't really interviewed up to this point. Again, I haven't finished it all,
Mm-hmm.
but I have enough information to know where the case went, right?
Yeah.
At least up to now.
Yeah.
Court happened for him in 2022 because they couldn't use the age. Long story short, he was acquitted.
Oh, wow.
Mhm. I think that's the right word. Did I use the right word?
Acquitted, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds to me like Anna, because they used some of Anna's information, but not birth certificates and stuff because they couldn't confirm her exact age.
Yep.
Was Anna just not a good witness? Like, was she not credible?
So because they couldn't use her age, they didn't use anything that she had said.
Okay. So basically, he was not guilty because they couldn't confirm that he knew that she was younger. So in theory,
Not even that he knew that she was not younger.
yeah, they couldn't figure that out, so they had to let him off, basically.
So
Okay.
he like does this whole thing. Oh my God. You would have thought he was found guilty with how dramatic he was.
Oh
He
God.
comes out of court, he's bawling, just like beside himself. And I'm like, what was the verdict?
Mm.
And he was acquitted. And he calls his son. So also, mind you, Christine, to confirm your hypothesis, this whole time during their divorce had been texting Michael, trying to manipulate him. And there's evidence of this.
Mm-hmm.
Get all her way in all these other ways. So she got custody of their sons. Yeah. And she would literally send text messages like nudes of herself and be like, you can have this if you do this. And he was dumb enough to do it.
Oh my gosh. Also,
Yeah.
Christine.
No, she's the hand.
Allegedly. Can we just talk about the fact that there is a lot wrong with both of these individuals?
Yes.
But you know, when we talk about if someone who's a little narcissistic connects with someone who's a little bit borderline or histrionic, that it's kind of
100%.
explosive.
And that's this.
In this case, Christine has some of those traits that typically evaluators tend to skew male. And
Yes.
Michael has some of those traits that evaluators tend to skew female. But the dynamic is still what it is.
She was the primary aggressor.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yes.
She was manipulative. And even Natalia confirms that. Like, she's
Yeah.
like, she was the base. She doesn't say it this way, but basically the devil. And Michael followed suit.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So, yeah. So Christine, all her stuff got dropped.
Mm.
So she didn't even really face what Michael was facing necessarily. But so, yeah. So it was this whole thing. And Christine was like, trying to manipulate Michael. Their oldest son, who's the autistic one, is also in this documentary.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it's just this whole thing. And I say that because of how Michael responded to getting acquitted. He's like beside himself crying, and he calls his son, the only one who's talking to him, and is like, they only needed an hour and a half to know that I didn't do anything wrong and I didn't blah blah blah. It was just painful. And the jury literally said, like, there was individuals who were interviewed and they were like, no, like it wasn't, we could not go off of anything else. And so our hands were tied.
Yeah, like they knew Michael was problematic, but they weren't allowed to convict him, basically.
Correct.
Okay.
Like there's no way they could have. Okay.
Jeez.
So here's the thing. There's so much more to all of this. There's so much more to the story. This took forever for me to say, and there's more, right?
Oh my goodness. I know this is a monster case.
It's nuts. So for me, we're going to jump into, and there's like more to Natalia's story and her being manipulated by other families. And it's a really sad case. The whole thing's super sad.
Yeah.
So moving from the story to the psychology part of this, I already said, I think allegedly, Michael is histrionic.
Yes.
I love how you said it. Individuals who would assess these individuals would probably look at Michael and say, your typology is skewing more female.
Yeah.
Christine's more male. I would probably diagnose Christine, if I had to diagnose her, with narcissism.
Well, and this is the thing, right? So this is where evaluators, treatment providers, all of it, it's messy. We get little pieces of stories.
Yeah.
It can be super manipulative, but Christine probably flew under the radar.
She did. Well, because she was this big personality who wanted to help people and help people specifically with autism.
Yes, 100%. So she floats.
Yep.
Michael actually gets painted as the unhealthier partner. They're both unhealthy,
They're both insane.
but Michael gets kind of pinned as
Correct.
the worst of the two because his behavior is not traditionally male. And again, we're talking about a binary only because that's what the
Yep.
statistics are, right? The statistics
Yes.
have not caught up with our continuum of
Correct.
gender and all of that. So I think as an evaluator, we all have implicit bias in many ways. I see all the ways in which implicit bias affected this case. So,
Yes.
right? So people meet Natalia and they're going to think whatever they're going to think because of their bias about whatever, her stature, her their view on a teenager who's rebellious, right? Whether or not she's a teenager is almost irrelevant.
Yep.
Everybody's going to project into this situation and it got super chaotic as a result.
Yep. Yep. Yes. And here's the thing, at the end of the day, regardless of how old Natalia is, she has significant disabilities.
Yeah.
I mean,
Which, if
her
anything, it's like, you know that book, A Million Little Pieces?
no.
And okay, it was written by a man suffering from addiction, and he wrote it as a memoir, like an autobiographical memoir. And Oprah chose
Mm,
this book, made a big deal out of it,
yeah.
and then realized he had fabricated a fair bit of it.
Dang.
And she, I mean, if
Lit him
something
up.
would have just disintegrated on a stage, it would have happened in this interview. Like she went for it. Well,
Yeah.
I heard this story and I was like, that is just so on brand. Like for someone with addiction issues who had a really chaotic 20-year stint, who
Yeah.
was in and out of treatment facilities, it almost made the memoir more powerful in some ways to me as someone who knows about people who suffer with this.
Yeah.
Natalia's behavior is on brand for reactive attachment disorder. It's not,
100%.
this happens. There's threats. And basically what the child is doing is they're trying to see if they're going to get left again. So they take it to the wall. And so this is, I mean, this is not a great analogy, but if you think about any kind of an adoption situation or even like rescue of a pet, I am not saying that adopted children are like pets. What I'm saying is if an animal can have a lot of distress when they've been bounced around between houses, why would we think people wouldn't?
100%.
So Natalia hiding knives potentially or threatening is not any different than that.
Well, and also here's the thing. If the abuse was as bad as Michael
Mm-hmm.
said it was, and that Natalia was getting her ass handed to her that way,
Mm.
maybe she had the knives for protection,
Oh yeah, and Michael, I got something for you, allegedly.
right?
If Christine was this bad,
Why didn't you do anything?
you're complicit.
100%. Well, that's what Natalia said.
You're complicit.
That's what she said. She said,
Well, I
Christine.
don't want to hear one word about Christine, Michael, because you were there too.
Oh, exactly. Oh, Janine, it's painful. It's
Oh,
painful to watch. I agree with you. Reactive attachment disorder.
mm-hmm.
And, maybe some other stuff going on too. You just don't know because she's
don't know.
adopted. She has a lot going on.
Well, and the sexual behaviors aren't super off base either. Yes, they're unhealthy. Yes, she needed treatment. Yes, 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 yes. And makes sense.
Yes.
She probably has trauma. She's probably been abused, like all of those things.
All of it. Yes. Sorry, it's so long.
No, it's good.
We're almost done.
Look at me paying attention like a
I'm
champion.
so proud of you. This was a long one.
Look at me.
I literally was like, we should maybe put this in a 2-part. I skipped a bunch too. I skipped.
Oh, no, I know. It's good though. It's a good case.
All right. So the heart piece for me, Janine, is this case was literally insane to do.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And again, I'm not even done. I did my own research, and my research, the documentary was super helpful to watch because, again, the research I did before was mainly that like Natalia was kind of the crazy one. And I know we don't like to use the word crazy, but it's a podcast, whatever.
But it painted your impression was that Natalia was a problematic human.
And she was not the problem.
The problem. Yeah.
The problem. right? That she was the one who tried to kill her family and blah, blah, blah. Being able to watch individuals, and this is why you and I think, love our job.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I can watch an individual
Mm.
and I can see their behavior and I can see how they're telling the story, it tells me a lot,
Yeah.
right? It tells me a whole different story than what they're actually telling me,
Oh, yeah.
right? So I'm watching this, these people interact. I'm watching Michael interact with his son. I'm watching Michael shift the blame to all
Mm.
these different people. And I'm like, you're telling this one story, but everything you're doing is telling me a totally different story. And so that was super helpful because now I'm sitting here and I'm like, it doesn't freaking matter really how old Natalia was. Like it does, but it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because the biggest thing is she had big trauma. There
Yeah.
was a lot of abandonment and she needed people to care for her
Consistently.
consistently, and that didn't happen. And it was like this perfect storm of mental health meets mental health meets mental health.
Well, and I love working with you because when we talk about implicit bias and the struggle as a mental health practitioner in this space, when we step into a family dynamic like this, or we step in as an evaluator or human services comes in, it's so challenging because we have limited information. But then if we're also stuck in implicit bias, confirmation bias, that kind of stuff, we can really struggle to make accurate recommendations,
Yep.
accurate diagnoses. And so it's a good reminder. This case, honestly, is a good reminder to me as an evaluator, supervisor, treatment provider to really sit with some of these complex cases and
Yep.
consider all of the perspectives
Yep.
and look at a holistic plan for this. We don't want to pathologize one individual in a system. Even in a case, let's say all of this was Natalia. Let's say that Michael and Christine were the most caring people on the planet, okay?
But
It's still a pathological family system because one person is really, really hurting, and Christine and Michael never would have had what they needed to deal with that anyway.
no,
And they
even if they
weren't
were
getting the help
healthy.
that they needed because they had pathologized kid,
Correct.
this kid, in quotes, because we still don't know.
We don't know. So, yeah, in my perspective,
Mhm.
the most unhealthy family adopted an unhealthy and compromised young girl
Mm,
and didn't know what to do.
mm-mm.
And then tried to spin a story that made everything worse and totally stole whatever childhood this young girl did have or didn't have,
Mm.
right? I mean, regardless of her age, her childhood was stolen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you and I both know a lot of really amazing individuals who've adopted. I have two cousins who are adopted from Russia.
Oh, yeah.
And I talk about them frequently because they're very different humans. They came from very different situations at about the same age. And you can tell, right? Based on who they are, how they are, all of that. And it's a big deal, right? Like it really impacts kids
Oh, yeah.
when you're not cared for. And this story, as much of a dumpster fire as it is, it's super sad.
Well, and one of my very best friends adopted internationally long time ago, and my favorite thing about her, and I have a lot of favorite things about her, but my most favorite thing is the understanding, the effort, everything that she has put into meeting her child where she's at.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable, and it continues. It continues even as her child is now coming into adulthood, and it's really beautiful, but oh my gosh, has it been a
Hard.
ride. It's
Oh, it's
been a
hard.
ride.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
respect that so much, and I think a lot of times people try to adopt for lots of reasons. They want to complete their family, they couldn't have children, they want to share their resources. I mean, there's a lot of beautiful and pathological reasons to adopt, right? And
Yeah.
we've heard about a lot of them. But I think the heart for me in this case is we have to be so intentional as a
Mhm.
society and as families when we choose to care for other people.
Yes.
You can't come and go. You can't give up when it's hard. It's
Yeah.
okay for it to be hard and to struggle with the fact that it's hard.
Yes.
But you don't get to dip in and out of people's lives. You don't get to give up. You can't do that kind of stuff. You really just need to resource yourself. And they clearly didn't do that.
No. Well, and they weren't healthy enough to even think about it.
Mm-mm. No.
That's the painful part is
But
they're
that's where the screening process has to come in, though, with adoptions, because that's one of the
literally.
things that is really, and I follow a couple of interesting channels on social media just around, and they're hard to listen to because
Yeah.
I'm very much pro taking care of children
Yeah.
who don't have a place to be. But the flip side of that is we need to give our adopted children agency and allow them to connect with culture. And I believe give them an opportunity to know their biological family if it's safe to do so. And there's like a
Yes.
lot of pieces to it. And so I've forced myself to get familiar with the
Mm.
other side of that, which is the adopted folks who grow up and go, that was really hard, or I didn't get to connect with my culture, or
Yeah.
gosh, I'm just not, I didn't connect as well with my parents as their biological children. It was really hurtful my whole life. All of those things that we have to support adoptive families. So the message isn't don't adopt, but it's like, if you're going to go in with a healthy respect for the process and humility
Yes.
about your ability to parent
And seek
effectively.
counsel, like seek out feedback and encouragement and
Mm,
community within that, like
absolutely.
you have to. It can't be an isolated thing and it can't come from a selfish place.
No, it
It
can't.
really can't be a selfish thing. I understand people wanting to complete their family and wanting to have kids and I don't think that that's a selfish motive necessarily. However, if that's your only motive,
Oh, yeah.
I would encourage you to again get some counseling and talk through
Yeah.
stuff and talk to people who have adopted.
Yeah.
Because if that's your goal, I mean, I know a lot of families who've rehomed, not a lot, that's a stretch, but I know of some families who have rehomed kids because they didn't know what they were getting themselves into.
Yeah.
It was glorified in their brain,
Oh, yeah.
and it's hard to watch. And then they feel guilty and shame and
Oh, and it's
it's
horrible
hard. So
too.
yes. Yeah, this case was a tough one to like navigate. It broke my brain a little, to be honest.
You did a good job, and I paid attention the whole time.
Girl, I'm so proud of you.
I know.
I'm
I'm
so
proud.
proud of you. I would have, I probably would have dipped during some of the story because it's a lot, my
No,
friend.
we don't do that anymore.
I know we don't. My encouragement to everyone, thank you for listening to this because I know it was long. I know it was a little bit back and forth. Dates are probably wrong because I was doing the best I could to piece it all together.
You get the gist. Nobody knows anything, and it's a chaotic mess.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And again, just be mindful and pay attention and love on people, but do so in a healthy way,
Oh, for sure.
you know?
Well, thanks so much, Nat. You put some work into this.
Uh,
No, this was a monster case. I mean, I think you did a great job, and we'll post updates if we have them or if more stuff comes out too.
yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us.
As always.
Bye, forensic friends. I'm Janine.
And I'm Nat.
And as always, thanks for listening and join us next week for more crime, psychology, and heart.